Hey everyone, the moon is smiling at me, and I think it's time for another episode of Design Lab. So, in this episode, we're going to have the topic of Sunken Forest, and this will be the first of the viewer participation videos that has an environment. So, the most important thing about doing environments is obviously having composition. Before we were just doing, figures, characters, creatures, machines, and you don't have to worry about composition when you're doing that stuff. You can just focus on the design. But for an environment, we like to think about the actual full composition. And you can see how I put it in a little box there. And that's because anytime I do an environmental, like thumbnail, loose design, I always like to put it in a box to really frame it and see if my composition looks good. I try to picture it like a frame in a movie, so I usually do it widescreen. And obviously, for the purposes of this video format, doing your thumbnail in widescreen will help out me as well. So they can be color, they can be black and white. Just remember that they're going to be thumbnails, and we're actually going to submit them differently this time. We're actually going to go to conceptart.org, and I'm just going to go and make a thread there. That way we can just submit art real easily. You'll have to make an account if you don't have one, but that's just a snap to do, and it's a great community. But yeah, I'm going to do that in the community activities section, and I'll show that in a second. But the main thing about that is just doing it on conceptart.org is that we'll be able to kind of talk about, each other's entries and discuss them because lately, it's been hard to really go through all of them and focus on them when I do these design labs. So this way we'll be able to at least discuss them a little bit before the second video, and then in the second video I'll pick some that, I think are interesting designs or maybe the most creative, and we'll just have our same little voting process from there and continue on like normal. But this is definitely a better format for displaying stuff. So you can see here conceptart.org. I'll just open it up real fast in case you're unfamiliar with the forums. But I'm scrolling down here to show you where the community activities section is. It's just, down here somewhere in the middle. And there's a whole bunch of activities here. And if you're unfamiliar with conceptart.org, these are, basically what we do, similar activities. And they have them every week where there's like a topic and everyone gets to design their own, take on it. A little different than what we do, but, it's similar in, giving you topics on a regular basis to design. So anyway, you can say I also wrote the little imgur thing, and if for some reason it's impossible for you to use concept art, maybe you could just post an img, and then I'll post that in the conceptart.org thread that I'll make. So that way everything will be in the thread, it'll be nice and simple. And I think this will work out better. At least it'll be, a different approach. So anyway, I think that's about it for the main kind of information that I needed to give. Anything I forgot will be in the description below, including the link to the thread, because of course I haven't made it since the video is not up yet. But once the video goes up, I'll try to get the thread up at the same time, so that'll work nicely, and I'll, cross-link them, so it'll be nice and easy to navigate to. Now, there are actually a lot of interesting methods for coming up with thumbnail designs for environments, possibly more so than things like characters and industrial design stuff. And that's just because when you're coming up with environmental thumbnails, it allows you to be really loose and abstract and really kind of find the shapes and find the composition inside a mess of either color or values or it's kind of anything. So it allows you to try a lot more experimental approaches to kind of access your visual library and your creativity. For starters, I'm just showing a kind of more basic and standard way of approaching things, which is just to kind of rough out some loose painting strokes and then to box everything together. But, I guess I should talk a little bit about the topic, which is Sunken Forest. And I wanted to pick something that was loose enough that you could come up with different ideas and they wouldn't all be the same. But obviously, it also has to be, it gives you some direction. So in terms of a sunken forest, it can be a lot of things. Obviously, the word sunken can refer to mainly things that are underwater, and it can be partially underwater. Maybe the whole forest is underwater, or maybe it's just a little underwater, or maybe it's not underwater at all. Maybe it refers to being sunken in clouds or sunken, in a canyon. Maybe the ground fell out beneath it. And of course, forest, generally something naturey. And I tried to pick a naturey topic for our first kind of public environmental design lab, just because I feel like that's the easiest thing to do when it comes to environments. I want to kind of make sure it's easy and things will get harder in probably future topics. But yeah, sunken forest. The forest can be whatever you think fits the category, and I hope you guys have some creative ideas that you might come up with. So yeah, that's one just basic method for coming up with thumbnails is the more direct approach. But I really wanted to explore something slightly different, and there are a lot of ways to explore something slightly different when it comes to this. But one way will be to take. I'm just going to take a couple pictures that I have on my computer from, local areas around where I live, and I'm going to use these as kind of my color palette or my basis, and I'm just going to kind of start arranging them. So I'm speeding this up a bunch, but I'm just kind of trying to create some chaos in the pictures themselves because I don't want anything direct. It looks like I'm trying to make something more direct, but I'm just kind of trying to create some chaos. At first, I wasn't sure, but yeah, then I just started to, I don't know, twist things around, make different designs, just kind of copy paste things in different angles. And there are actually some better methods for this. One might be to use, like a really fractal type generators to create a lot of just shapes in different directions, or use Photoshop brushes. In fact, this whole process works a lot better in Photoshop because of how good it is at both allowing you to kind of mess with different shapes and angles and really quickly select things and use clone brushes and just kind of make a mess of something. It's a lot easier there than it is in Painter. But anyway, I just want to get a mess of things that fit my color palette, and once I have that, then I could just go back and then kind of either zoom in, maybe rotate again, but I just want to make a grid of like thumbnails without really looking at what I'm making it over. But I make this grid and then I just kind of go through filling out little boxes. So I have a bunch of little widescreen uh, landscapes. Well, they're not really landscapes yet. I mean, some of them are just, messes of shapes and everything. But then I'm going to look at each of those and try to see if my visual library, my kind of creativity, can see anything in that mess, which is, once again, being able to see stuff where there is, nothing really there is one of the keys to creating new ideas. It's honing in on your visual library. And I talk a lot about that in obviously the design theory videos, which really get into that. And, just that concept of building a visual library from, just having it stored up over the years. And that's the thing that really makes you an individual. Don't forget, no one has your visual library. No one's seen every single thing that you have seen in your life. So the way you view something and the things you might picture in that mess of shapes will always be different. But anyway, so I made a little grid here of different things, and I'm just kind of going in and seeing what I can find in them, and maybe adding little details here and there. Not details, I would say, but just adding like blocks of color here and there to kind of flesh out what I might be seeing. And, that's just, one approach. You don't have to go with that. Obviously, you can go with whatever you want. It doesn't even have to be painting. It doesn't have to be drawing. You can, I don't know, find a way to do other types of thumbnails. Just get your ideas to me in any way you can. And once again, just to stress it, so you guys remember, you don't have to do anything even near finished. This level of, just loose idea is all you need. This is Design Lab. The second step is really just coming up with ideas. It's not about making finished pieces. It's just, the process of, thinking about it, brainstorming, getting ideas to flow. So I think that's about all I have to say. Hopefully you guys will have fun with it, and once again, you'll post whatever you can come up with on conceptart.org, and that will be linked in the description. So I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and I'll see you soon.